Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into the 19th century, a time when, well, everything was changing because of the Industrial Revolution.
It really forced nations to make a choice, didn't it? Industrialize or get left behind.
Exactly. It was adapt or fade, basically.
Mm.
And we know you want to get the core of these big shifts quickly without wading through tons of info.
Great. So we're zeroing in on two really interesting cases today. Egypt under Muhammad Ali and Japan during the Meiji Restoration.
Yeah, two fascinating examples, and they went in such different directions. One tried, really pushed, but external forces kind of stopped it.
That's Egypt. And the other, Japan, well, they didn't just succeed, they totally reshaped their place in the world, a huge power shift.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Understand the different game plans, why one worked, why the other didn't, and what was pushing them in the first place.
And we're digging into the sources to see what they tell us about the causes and effects of these big economic moves.
Okay, let's start with Egypt. We're talking early 1800s. Technically part of the Ottoman Empire, but
Yeah, Muhammad Ali was running things pretty independently. The Ottoman Empire itself was, well, let's say it had seen better days. Lots of internal problems.
right, kind of sprawling and maybe losing its grip a bit, which probably gave Ali some room to maneuver.
Exactly. And he saw the writing on the wall. These Western powers were industrializing, getting stronger. He figured Egypt needed to do the same to stand on its own feet, reduce dependence on the Ottomans.
Kind of a, if you can't beat them, join them approach, or at least adopt their tech.
Precisely. He needed Egypt to be strong militarily and economically. So how did he go about it?
Okay, so what did he actually do? What were the steps?
Well, he launched some major state-funded projects, big focus on industry building textile factories, and crucially, weapons factories.
Ah, weapons.
Yeah.
So defense and power projection were definitely part of the plan.
Oh, absolutely. And he didn't stop there. Agriculture, too. The government basically became the main buyer and seller of crops for export. Central control.
Very top down. And our sources mention tariffs, right?
Right.
Protectionism.
Yes, exactly. Tariffs, taxes on goods coming into the country. The idea was to make imported stuff more expensive.
So Egyptian businesses, these new factories, could actually have a chance to grow without being swamped by, say, cheaper British goods immediately.
That was the plan. Give the infant industry some breathing room. A pretty standard tool, really, for developing economies.
But as we mentioned at the start, it didn't quite work out for Egypt in the long run. Why not? What went wrong?
The biggest hurdle was external pressure, specifically Great Britain.
Okay, why Britain?
Well, Britain was the dominant industrial power, and they weren't exactly thrilled about a potentially strong industrialized Egypt popping up, especially given its location.
The Suez Canal connection. Even before the canal was formally built, the route was vital, wasn't it?
Hugely vital. The main route to India and Asia, Britain was very protective of its interests there. A powerful Egypt controlling that area made them nervous.
So geopolitics colliding with economic ambitions. How did Britain act on this unease?
They got their chance in 1839. There was a war between Egypt and the Ottomans, and Britain intervened.
And the outcome?
The crucial outcome for Egypt's industry was this. Britain forced Muhammad Ali to get rid of those protective tariffs, open up the market.
So the very protectionism designed to help Egyptian industry was dismantled.
Exactly, and the effect was predictable, really.
Let me guess. British goods flooded in.
Precisely. Mass-produced, cheap British goods. Egypt's new factories just couldn't compete. They were undercut.
So that basically killed the industrial experiment.
It stifled it, yeah, prevented it from really taking off. Egypt ended up remaining largely an agricultural economy, dependent on exporting raw materials, especially cotton, to Britain. Economic dependence instead of independence.
Wow. A stark reminder of how global power politics can shape or even crush a nation's economic path.
It really is.
Okay, so that's the Egyptian story. Let's switch gears completely now and look at Japan. A very different outcome there.
Totally different. Japan not only industrialized, it became a major Asian power and eventually a global one.
And their starting point was isolation, right, for like centuries.
Yeah, under the Tokugawa shogunate, they deliberately cut themselves off from most of the world, just very limited controlled trade with the Dutch, I believe.
A conscious choice to keep foreign influence out. So what changed? Why did they suddenly pivot so dramatically?
Well, a couple of big things. First, they were watching what was happening elsewhere in Asia.
Like in China.
Exactly. They saw Western powers basically carving up China using military force, imposing these unequal treaties, taking economic control. And the Japanese leadership looked at that and thought, No thank you, we don't want that.
A powerful motivation to avoid the same fate. What was the other factor?
The Americans arrived. Commodore Matthew Perry, 1853, sails into Tokyo Bay with these, big, modern, steam-powered warships bristling with guns.
Talk about making an entrance. A bit intimidating.
Massively intimidating. It was a huge shock. Perry demanded Japan open up to trade. He even, reportedly, gave him a white flag as a sort of gift.
A white flag?
Yeah.
Like surrender or...
That's certainly how it was interpreted. A very clear message about the power disparity. It forced Japan's hand.
So this was the wake-up call. They realized isolation wasn't going to protect them anymore.
Pretty much. They saw they were technologically way behind and vulnerable. The response wasn't just to open up slightly. It was this incredibly ambitious, state-driven push to modernize and industrialize fast. It was seen as essential for survival, for defense.
And this wasn't without internal struggle, right? The Boshin War.
Right. There was a civil war around 1868-69. Younger samurai, particularly from certain clans, were worried about the shogun's handling of foreigners and the threat they posed. They overthrew the shogunate and restored the emperor to direct power. That's the Meiji Restoration. These were the guys pushing for rapid modernization.
Okay, so the Meiji Restoration begins. What did that actually involve? What did this state-led modernization look like?
It was incredibly comprehensive. They didn't just focus on factories. Culturally, they sent missions, delegations all over the world to the US, Britain, Germany, France.
To do what? Just look around.
To learn, to study everything. Technology, industry, banking, military structures, government systems, education, even culture. Then they brought those ideas back and adapted them for Japan, like a massive national R&D project.
Very pragmatic. Let's learn from the best. What about the government itself?
They changed that too. They set up a constitution, established an elected parliament, modeled quite a bit on Germany's system at the time. A strong central government was seen as key to driving the changes.
In infrastructure.
Industry. Huge state investment. They funded railroads, created a modern national banking system, and directly established key industries, textiles, munitions, shipbuilding, things needed for both economic growth and military strength.
So unlike Egypt, where Britain intervened to stop industrialization, the Japanese state was actively, aggressively driving it, and they managed to do it without that kind of crippling foreign interference.
Exactly. And the results were, well, dramatic.
They succeeded.
Big time. Within just a few decades, Japan transformed itself into the major industrial power in Asia. It defeated China, then Russia, in major wars.
Which was unprecedented.
Completely. And maybe the most significant thing, Japan became strong enough to deal with the Western powers on essentially equal terms. They renegotiated those unequal treaties. That was unique in Asia at the time.
So bringing this all together then, we have Egypt, ambitious plans, strong leader, but ultimately thwarted by external geopolitical pressure from a dominant power like Britain.
Their nascent industries just couldn't withstand the forced opening of their markets.
And then you have Japan, facing a similar, maybe even more direct threat from the West, but they responded with this incredibly focused, top-to-bottom internal transformation.
Right. Driven by fear of domination, but also by this strong national will. They learned, adapted, invested, and built up their strength remarkably quickly.
It really highlights how crucial both internal factors like political will and strategy and the external environment like geopolitical rivalries and trade pressures are, doesn't it?
Absolutely. They're completely intertwined. You can't really understand one without the other.
So thinking about this, it gives you a lens to look at economic development, not just historically, but even today.
Definitely. Which leads to a question for you to maybe think about after this. How much does a country's success depend on its own choices and internal structure versus the international system it finds itself in? Are they locked into paths by global forces, or can internal resolve overcome those?
Yeah, and can you see echoes of these dynamics, the Egyptian struggle against external economic forces, or the Japanese model of rapid defensive modernization playing out anywhere in the world today? Something to chew on.